Hello, couples, and welcome back to Thrive, where we give you practical tools to build a stronger marriage together.
Today, we're going to talk about what it means to feel safe in our relationship. We're going to look at this question: am I a safe person for my spouse?
Now, when you hear the word safe, you may be tempted to think of personal safety like seatbelts, door locks, maybe an alarm system. But today, we're talking about something different. We are talking about safety on an emotional level. Now, one element of being emotionally safe for our spouses is to be a person that the other can share their feelings with. When it relates to our relationships with our spouses, we all have had times where we may question if there is freedom to share what we are really feeling. For example, what does it mean to feel safe when asking your spouse for help around the house?
Or, what does it mean to feel safe when asking your spouse why they seem more on edge than usual? And as we've said, the goal is for us to have a thriving marriage. A big part of thriving in marriage is being free to share emotions with your spouse and being an emotional support for your spouse. I know we all have different stories, but for many of us, sharing our feelings can be a foreign thing. Maybe you were raised with a mother who never showed emotion. Maybe your father showed emotion, but it was typically harsh, or maybe he wasn't in the picture when you were young. It's possible you've never seen a parent you respect handle their emotions in a healthy way. The great news for us is that no matter what we've experienced in our past, we have the opportunity, by God's help, to chart a different future. We get to show our spouse and our children, or future children, what being a safe person really looks like.
And here's the deal, for some of us, we have the unique ability of processing our emotions freely. Any of you ever had the experience where you express something you felt to your spouse, then you look at them and they look like a deer caught in headlights? We may or may not have experienced that a time or two. But here's the thing for you to know as we begin this session. Just because your spouse doesn't express themselves like you do does not mean they do not have emotions. We all experience stresses in life and frustrations, and we all feel things. The goal for us is to seek to understand our spouse and be a safe place for them.
Because when we don't feel valued and protected by those closest to us, we keep our guards up. We cope. We remain emotionally disconnected and distant from one another. In a safe marriage, both spouses are seen, heard, valued.
And most people assume they're safe. We might not recognize the ways we are emotionally unsafe and discourage others from being emotionally honest with us.
So if the goal is to be a safe spouse, what does that actually look like? Let's take a listen to Russ and Danielle as they share how they've learned to be a safe place for each other, and we'll be back at the end to wrap it up.
Do you ever hear a principle and think, well, that doesn't apply to me? When it came to emotional safety, I thought I was extremely safe. I didn't attack Russ verbally during an argument. I never regretted anything I said because I never said anything. I was the nice one in an argument. I simply walked away and never brought the topic up again. Because if you ignore it long enough, it goes away, right? Let's talk about emotional safety. Angry outburst, being defensive, being critical, disrespectful, those are all obvious examples of being emotionally unsafe with your spouse. But shutting down is included in this list.
Now, if you had asked me years ago if I was safe, I would have said yes, because I thought it meant physical safety. But I've since learned there's a whole nother level of safety, which is your emotions.
Me too. I was shocked to learn that shutting down was being emotionally unsafe. I truly thought I was being the nice one in the argument because I didn't say anything mean. But shutting down is one of the 4 leading predictors of divorce, according to marriage expert Dr. John Gottman. Early on in our marriage, I thought Russ was the one who was not emotionally safe because of his intense verbal command of the English language, combined with his magnification and overreactions. It could shut me down for days.
Yeah, don't remind me. I thought she was the one that was not emotionally safe. She would shut down or stay in what I called a funk for weeks.
Our marriage counselor gave us some visuals to describe what we look like in an argument. He's the tiger, I'm the turtle. The more the tiger comes after me, the more I'll hunker down in my turtle shell.
Danielle thought she was being the nice one by shutting down. She since learned that shutting down is just as damaging to the relationship as my words were. We both needed to learn how to be emotionally safe. Now, before we talk about being emotionally safe, let's step back and talk about the science of what is happening when you engage in an argument.
So you have these stress hormones that are flooding your system. Adrenaline, cortisol, epinephrine. Those stress hormones shift you out of the logical part of your brain back to the reactive part of your brain, the amygdala.
Now, when your amygdala gets triggered, you only have three options. You either fight, flee, or freeze. Now, I have a tendency to fight, and Danielle will do a combination of either flee or freeze.
Fleeing from the conversation was my way of protecting myself when I got hurt. But I've since learned there is more damage done when I don't return to the conversation.
It's just as important for me to stop arguing as it is for Danielle to take some time away from the argument. It used to make me so anxious when she would walk away because I wanted to fix the argument in the moment. Our first fight, she wouldn't talk to me for 3 days. And when I was used to fixing a fight in 3 minutes, it's just like at work. We would just hash it out and resolve the situation.
Sorry.
Now, some couples will push back when they want to resolve conflict before bed and quote the Bible verse, Ephesians 4:26, where it says, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry." They do this believing they should argue until the fight is resolved. But I love what Danielle saw when she studied this verse. It says, "Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry." Now, it's not up to your spouse to make you unangry. Your feelings of being angry, sad, or frustrated may be more about what's inside of you versus what your spouse does.
And most people assume that they're emotionally safe, but few have all the safety characteristics. Instead of being defensive, a safe person receives feedback. Instead of shutting down an argument, a safe person stays engaged. Instead of trying to fix whatever it is your spouse is telling you about, a safe person shows empathy. Instead of interrupting while they are talking, a safe person listens well and seeks to understand their spouse's perspective.
Now, a good exercise to practice emotional safety is to ask, have I done anything to frustrate or hurt you this week? Now, it's important to make sure you're fresh, that you're emotionally safe, and ready to listen, and most importantly, try to understand your spouse's perspective. Now, I always ask the men to go first by being leaders here. So step one, ask your spouse if you've done anything the past week to frustrate or hurt them. And whatever they say, make sure not to get defensive or react negatively.
And that includes body language, your tone, and the words that you're using.
Yes, remember their perspective is their truth, whether you agree with it or not. All right, step two is to validate their feelings, even if you don't think they're justified. For example, say, "I'm sorry I frustrated you," or "I'm sorry I hurt you." The last thing I want to do is frustrate you or hurt you. And then step three, ask them what they would have liked you to have done differently. And when they answer, commit to trying to do your best next time. Even though there's a good chance that you'll mess up again in a similar situation, I often do, but over time you'll get better at it. And if they ask for something you know you probably can't do, then suggest something back. The key here is to work together on a common solution to try to keep the frustration or hurt from happening again. When you finish, you'll switch and let your wife lead the process. Now, this will take some time to get good at, but it's one of the best ways to grow closer to each other. Danielle and I have learned that getting good at managing conflict and repairing after hurting each other is when we often feel the closest to each other. I never would believe that we could feel this close after conflict before actually seeing this process work.
Now we're going to role play an example of what it looks like to be emotionally unsafe and emotionally safe, and this is an actual thing that has happened.
So first we're going to give you the example of how we were not emotionally safe. So here's the context. Early in our marriage, we were at a friend's dinner one Saturday night, and Danielle felt ignored.
So on our drive home, I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I'm sulking, not saying anything.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
What do you mean nothing? Something's wrong.
You ignored me all night.
That's a bunch of bull. What are you talking about? I did not ignore you.
You always ignore me when we're with your friends. It went on for hours.
You are always exaggerating. You just wanted to ruin my fun night. And then that's the end of the argument, because she'll stay like that for days, not saying a word.
Sorry.
All right, so now we're going to give you an example later in our marriage when this scenario happens, and we're going to show you how to be emotionally safe.
Okay, so under this emotional safe scenario, we're both getting back into the car, and during the evening, I got my feelings hurt. I had felt really ignored during the evening, and it's natural for me to want to blame Russ for it. But what I do now is I think about, okay, why did that hurt me so bad? Because when my feelings are that strong, I know it's more about me than it is about what something Russ might have done to me. So I think about, okay, how can I take responsibility for this? Okay, so I'm just kind of peeling back what is bothering me and trying to process the whole situation.
Is something wrong, honey? Did I do something tonight that hurt you or frustrated you?
Oh, I felt ignored for most of the evening at the party. It just was really frustrating.
Oh, I'm so sorry. The last thing I want you to do is to feel ignored. Can you tell me more why you felt ignored?
I don't know, that's probably why I'm being so quiet. I'm just trying to think through why it's just so hard, because it's hard to contribute to a conversation when it's all about football. You're reminiscing about growing up here when I didn't grow up here. I feel ignored and it feels so real in the moment. And what I'm trying to do is take responsibility for feeling ignored. And you know, my childhood emotional wound is feeling ignored. And in the moment, it feels so real. And yes, I was mad at you in the moment, but as I think about it, I know this is more about me, but gosh, in those moments, it just feels so real that it's happening.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. I can really understand why you felt ignored, and I'm so sorry. Can you please forgive me? And also, can you help me by telling me what I could have done differently that might have helped next time in the same situation?
Sure, and of course I forgive you. I don't really necessarily see this as your problem. It's more about me than you. But something that you could do that would help me is perhaps next time you could involve me in the conversation, even if it means changing the subject.
Okay, well first, thank you for forgiving me. And that's a great point about next time. I'll definitely try to be more aware of what's going on and include you in the conversation, even if it means me changing the subject, even if that subject's football.
You're so sacrificial.
Thank you, honey.
Now let's talk about how those two scenarios were different. Obviously, the ending went differently, but the beginning also did. Did you notice that I started with I statements and a feeling that I had in the second scenario? In the first, I was accusatory with you statements and an angry tone, and then I pulled the always word. When we use the always word in marriage, as in you always ignore me when you're with your friends, we're showing our spouse that we are keeping score. And who wants to be married to someone who keeps a record of when he or she messes up?
All right, so remember to be emotionally safe based on the characteristics that we described earlier. That way your spouse can be honest with you. Because if you don't turn towards each other over time, you might turn elsewhere.
And you'll experience three things in this exercise. You'll be encouraged, you'll learn something, but you'll also get your feelings hurt. It took several years before I learned how Russ was walking on eggshells around me, because if he said anything I didn't like, I would shut down. I was shocked that my shutting down was creating this anxiety within him. Again, I thought I was just protecting myself and preventing myself from saying anything mean. A safe spouse would stay engaged in the conversation even when it gets hard.
For sure. Now there's a popular verse in the Bible that's included in most weddings. It's found in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, where it says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs.
Now that's a picture of safety. Listen to this again and think about your spouse. The way I choose to love my spouse should be characterized by being patient, being kind, not envying, not boasting, not being proud, not dishonoring him or her, not being easily angered, and not keeping a record of wrongs. God gave us that picture of what love really is, and He knew that we would all need His help to live that out in marriage.
All right, so here's our challenge for you. Pick one of the following attributes in the verse, like patience or kindness, not envious, doesn't boast, and then work on implementing into your marriage the next week. You'll have moments where you'll have to pause and ask God to help you. That's okay. Then the following week, apply a new one. As we close, and if you remember nothing else, here's the bottom line. In order to have a thriving marriage, we must become a safe spouse. Thanks so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
In order to have a thriving marriage, you must become a safe spouse. You can learn methods of communicating or creative ideas to improve your relationship, but without safety, you'll remain emotionally disconnected. And let's face it, none of us want to settle for that type of marriage. That's no way to live. I mean, why settle when you can thrive?
For some of you, it may feel like you have a lot of work to do in this area, but I want you to remember one important thing that we've discussed previously. God is with you. God has not left us alone to figure things out on our own. God wants your marriage to thrive. He created marriage. And as a perfect father who loves us more than we can imagine, he loves it when we call on him for help.
That is so right. Like we've done before, this is your time to chat with each other. We've provided a few questions for you to discuss together as a couple. This is a chance to be a safe place for your spouse. And for some of us, this is a chance to be vulnerable with your spouse. Your spouse can't prove they are trustworthy until you seek to trust. And when you do, be patient and look for signs of progress rather than shortcomings. We believe in you. You got this. And we'll catch you next time.